Hello and welcome to the very last episode of Go Open for this season. Will we be back? Well, like a whippet in a jacuzzi, we're quite unsure. So in this episode, we're going to finally make it worth your while and answer the question everyone's been thinking, but no one's really asked us, but we're going to answer it anyway. How do I make money from open source? Me personally. No, I'm kidding. All of us. Well, to show you, we visit a company that does just that. They use SMS technology. Then we'll meet some experts in the field, both locally and internationally. And in case you're wondering what open source is, come closer so I can whack you with a bat.
Open source software exists as a result of the combined efforts of millions of computer programmers, users, and software vendors from around the world. They share their intellectual property freely, and they believe that software should cost nothing and should enrich the lives of users. Open source software is the alternative and biggest challenger to closed source or proprietary software. It generally costs the user nothing. It can be distributed freely to anyone. Download it, use it, modify it, and give it away. It's a whole new world. Open source is the future of computing.
So open source software is free, right? And you can download it. Okay. So how do programmers make money from it? That's the question. Well, we have the answer. We're giving it to you. You can give it to other people if you want, but we're giving it to you because we like you, not them.
The 1980s and 1990s are a great time for the software business because it's an extremely profitable business if you have a popular product, right? Your cost of producing an extra CD of software is very, very low compared to the price that you can attach to that software. But I think the industry is moving away from that, and that really won't be a sustainable business model in future.
Mark Shuttleworth is South Africa's best-known IT multi-millionaire, and he says he owes it all to hard work and open source software. In 1999, he made headlines when he sold his company Thought Consulting to American competitor VeriSign for $575 million. Thought didn't sell software. The price paid for the company was due to their customer base and market share.
We used software. We built all of that operation using open source software. The database that we used to track all of our transactions was open source. The web server that we were using was open source. A lot of the tools to do the cryptography were initially open source tools that are available, were available then and are still available today. It wasn't a software business. And I think that's really a sign of where the IT industry is headed. Far more of the industry is going to be focused around services than around software licensing.
It doesn't matter how good the operating system is, sooner or later you're going to need somebody to come along and modify it for you, or expand it, or install new software, or make it better, add new users.
Alan McKinnon's company, AfriBiz, has two arms. One part of the business offers support for people running open source software and networks. The other part is in training people to maintain systems.
You must remember, traditionally with IT, the only guy that made money out of Microsoft product was Microsoft. They sold their product. Everybody else made money from supporting it, or giving training in it, or writing new software for it. Now we've set our business up. It runs just like any other normal business. A student contacts us, he signs up to do a course, there's a fee, he pays, we train him. So we're no different from any other training institute. There's one big difference: we only train on open source software.
Open source software is freely available, which means that startup costs are much lower. For Mark, who started his business in his garage, it was indispensable.
I was a student at the time. I had no money. I was doing this to help pay for university. And so I certainly couldn't have afforded to build all of this on proprietary software. That's the first thing. The second thing was that the proprietary software that was available just didn't have the features. Open source software tends to be richer in terms of what you can do with it, and easier to use in terms of plugging different pieces together to create something. So what I found was that using open source software, I was able to set up servers on the other side of the world. I was able to build all of the infrastructure using database software that was both free of charge and allowed me to plug deeply into it because the source code was all free. Was able to present all of this through the web at very low cost because the web server software was all freely available, and the programming languages that I used to create all of these tools, those were also freely available. So there was a huge resource out there that I could tap into to start building this business from scratch.
The business opportunities presented by the open source revolution have been picked up on by the giants of IT like IBM, Sun, and HP.
HP is developing whole new products which are developed specifically for emerging markets, and those all use open source very heavily because it's the only way that they can both price them and compete from a functionality point of view in these emerging markets.
An example is HP's 441, which allows 4 people to share the resources of one computer. It is built in the flexibility and power of the open source operating system Linux.
Once the big names start to support the whole open source way of doing things, your IBMs and HPs, then others will follow suit.
There are many small organizations who are finding themselves sustainable. An example is MySQL, which is a database. Started as an open source database, became so popular, in fact it's now the most popular database behind websites, that they generate enough revenue out of consulting and services associated with this free software to keep their business going.
One of the most popular commercial distributions of the free and open source operating system called Linux is Red Hat. Red Hat as a company has made a living out of providing services and user-friendly tools for installation and configuration. Mark Chase just gets around, he really does. He's just everywhere. He's bigger than someone who's really big. He got to speak to one of the founders of Red Hat, and his name is Robert Young.
Well, Bob, again, welcome. The majority of your customers then and predominantly now for Red Hat were and are back-end customers, not end users.
That's exactly right. Everyone's sort of fixated on the desktop, sort of being those are the end users. And we're personally, as consumers, making decisions on what software goes on that. So in the 1980s, killer apps were things like word processors and spreadsheets. Killer apps being something, an application for which you would go and buy a computer in order to run it. In the 90s, late 90s, the killer app was not anything on the software store shelf. The killer app was eBay, it was Amazon, it is Google. And so if these killer apps exist on the internet, suddenly the end users don't care what computer they run. They don't choose an operating system because the applications sit out there on the net. Open source is a better platform for Google and Amazon and eBay to build their applications on. Our market was not on the end user machine, it was on the server side of the opportunity.
What advantages does Red Hat have over other distros?
This isn't about better, faster, or cheaper software. This is about software that you, the engineer, for the first time, have absolute control over. So we don't wrap proprietary tools into Red Hat. We don't force you to sign a licensing deal just to get the software.
Bob, you were one of the first open source companies to list on the stock exchange. Why was that?
The reason you have to raise capital as a technology company is it requires a lot of effort, a lot of resources to move your innovative technology from the early adopter market into the mainstream and convince the MIS director for Deutsche Bank or the MIS director for De Beers down in your neck of the woods to commit the future of their organization to technology from a little company in the tobacco fields in North Carolina. They just aren't going to do it unless they believe that that little company is going to be around 5, 10, 15 years into the future. So by having a big successful stock market offering, by raising a couple of $100 million, we are able to go into the MIS director at De Beers and he'll take us seriously, whereas, you know, the day before we did that, when we were a $14 million box software vendor, he wouldn't have returned our phone calls.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for joining us here at GoOpen. It was really interesting chatting to you.
Hey, thanks, Mark, and good luck with the GoOpen project. It sounds fascinating.
Thank you.
Robert Young's new company is called Lulu.com. It'll publish your work for absolutely nothing. If someone buys your work, they'll print it, dispatch it, get it out there. They'll take a fee for their services, plus some commission, and forward you the balance. So it's really rather quite clever. And now we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll have even more websites. New businesses with new ideas need versatile solutions. And that usually means open source. Meet Starfish.
The beauty of cell phones is that you can stay in touch whenever and wherever you want. Starfish Mobile is a company that creates SMS campaigns. They're into permission marketing, which means that you only get messages from them that you want. Starfish Mobile Technologies has scored a hole-in-one in South Africa, bringing about innovations that have put SMS marketing on the map. Their 3B campaign for SABC3, as well as similar games and competitions for a wide range of clients, has been revolutionary in a market that features a few key players. Marketing director Wayne Nelson Esch told me the original idea came from his exposure to the technology in the Philippines.
The Philippines is probably, well, it is the biggest SMS market in the world. I think now they're doing something like 17 or 18 billion SMSs a month, which is over like 20% of the world market, which is incredible. And when I saw what they were doing, I thought, you know, if you could take what they were doing there already, use the base of what they were doing, and bring it to countries where they were starting to work on mobile marketing and selling content in a mainstream way for the operators, you would always have a huge advantage. And I was lucky enough to meet up my partners now, which is Surpass, Nixon Alada, who's the president. And we just had a chat, and it was one of those funny stories in Starbucks, you know, on the napkin, really it was. And we sort of wrote a few ideas down. And the next minute we decided that, you know, we'd create a new company called Starfish Mobile, which would basically be, take Surpass outside of Asia. We have servers at Internet Solutions in Rosebank, but all the development is done in Manila, and then everything's uploaded via the web onto the servers here.
Back when you were starting out, what made you choose open source?
Surpass was an existing business, and they had already built the platform on open source, the Griffin platform. Why? Well, it was obviously, I mean, if it had gone proprietary, I think it would have been very difficult for them to have built it from scratch.
We were a startup 3 years ago, and that involved living out of cans, you know, eating sardines, canned meat, and we weren't gonna plunk down 500 or 100,000 rand on a system that we could ill afford. So open source was the way to go, and fortunately, the platform has proven to be very robust.
David Zaraga is employed by Surpass. He is here to help with the technical skills transfer needed to make the system work in the local environment.
The creator of the Griffin platform, Andy Garcia, has constantly upgraded it from its humble beginnings to a system that can actually handle 3 million incoming messages and 9 million outgoing messages every day. And that includes MMS and SMS.
We're looking at going to other countries and places like the States, etc., where the system is going to have to be scaled, you know, from what we're doing here or from what we do in DRC or what we do in Egypt, where we have offices as well. And it allows us to do that very easily, very cost effectively. I mean, if you look at the volumes of 3B and the volumes that they're doing in the Philippines, I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, they're pushing through millions of messages a day through that system. I think that it was definitely the right way to go.
Is open source important to the way Starfish works?
If you look at things like 3B and Sprite that we ran now, which was Coca-Cola's biggest, you know, campaign ever on mobile, I mean, that was very complicated off the back end, not for the consumer. And it was trivia and it was games and updating your points, and it was really complicated. But the system, the back end works, you know, and you know, that is the engine of our business.
We're all about open source and business today, and we have someone in the studio to talk about the role of the private sector and government in social and economic development, all together and intertwined. His name is Clive Smith, and he's from the HPI community. Clive, just to start off and let people know, what is the I community?
So the iCommunity is a really interesting project in Limpopo, which is a public-private partnership between government and HP to try and see how can information technology really make a contribution to sustainable economic and social development in rural communities.
Okay, so it's quite a leap from kind of IT to these rural communities. How does it work?
Well, what we do is we build an ecosystem of partners who address a whole range of different things, because a lot of access projects are basically about you put a telecenter up somewhere, and it turns out not to be sustainable. You actually have to build the whole ecosystem of all of the parts. So for example, when we went there, there was no one to do technical support, so we had to create a call center that could do technical support. There was no one who could do training, so we had to actually train the first trainers and then start offering the ICDL certification. In fact, the iCommunity was the first place globally that was certified to offer ICDL for open source.
Okay, so I mean, your guiding sort of directives are to actually go and enlighten these people.
the cell phone is a really good example. I mean, who thought that rural communities would need cell phones when they didn't have water, they didn't have electricity, they didn't have food and so on? And the same kind of model is now going to be applied to computers. There are a lot of values, whether it's delivery of government services, or whether it's getting a photograph of your kid when they graduate, or whether it's finding out what the status of your ID document application is, that can be now delivered in a rural community in a much cheaper way.
The benefits for open source has had for several countries that are kind of adopting it at a national level. What are the benefits?
Well, there are a lot of benefits for governments, especially, is that they know that there are no trapdoors in the code, that they can go into the code and look at it themselves and make sure that there's no security breaches. And even when you're looking at cost, people just think about the cost of acquisition, but the cost of developing new software for yourself, for example, in a Department of Education that wants to develop local software, you share that burden amongst a community of 500,000 people and more around the world. And finally, one of the biggest benefits, especially in a context like South Africa, is localization.
Thanks very much for joining us. It's been really good talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clive.
Thank you.
Right, after the break, Mark Shuttleworth will teach us something else again, how to present with open source. And we also go to some websites, which is quite fun, because websites can be fun. We're going to a break now, where they're going to try and sell you things, but don't feel pressured into buying them. See you now. Well, we're back. I don't know what you thought about that break. I didn't like it. I thought it was a bit commercial. The range of open source software that's available is stupendous. We managed to introduce you to just a couple of the main ones. But now, here's Mark with a presentation package that rivals the commercial equivalents.
Today we're doing it again with OpenOffice. Now OpenOffice is a business productivity suite. It has a word processor, a spreadsheet, and a presentation package. And we've already looked at the word processor and the spreadsheet, so today we're looking at the presentation package. The OpenOffice presentation package, called Impress, is compatible with Microsoft PowerPoint.
It can both open and save PowerPoint documents. The basic templates can be modified to suit your tastes. Choose from a range of customizable transitions, and there are drawing tools aplenty. You can insert graphic images or even video clips to spice up your presentation.
OpenOffice is free business software that I use every single day. It's available on the Mac, on Windows, and also on Linux. So whichever operating system you're running, you can use it to do your business presentations.
If you have any questions about what you've seen on this program, or heard in fact, but not from your friends because they can tell stories, go to the website on www.goopensource.org, and all of the stuff from this program will be revealed right there, including how you order the entire series on DVD. That's 13 episodes for 199 Rand, well worth it. Over the last 12 episodes, we brought you hot new products and programs, things that go and some that go in the What's Hot slot. Today we bring you What's Hot. It's open source, but it's got nothing to do with computing. Figure that one out, because I have no idea what it is.
I wonder if you realize that open source software, or open source, is not just limited to the world of computing. The concept has always existed. The open source way of thinking comes from situations where it's better for everyone to spread their knowledge and to allow for progress. But it also touches our lives daily, and sometimes we take it for granted. Like when you attempt a gourmet meal from a recipe. Recipes are often given out freely. Some restaurants even publish their recipes to make their brands more accessible. Libraries and newspapers are a free source of knowledge and news. And what about great clothing? Sewing patterns are often freely available, so you're not held hostage by haute couture. And to quench your thirst, free beer, a Danish beer released under the Creative Commons license. Let's not forget Open Cola. It's a fizzy drink that tastes like Coke. Or is it Pepsi? The only difference is you can get the recipe at opensourcecola.com, and it's written on the side of the can. So now you can make the real thing at home. Then there's open ecology, open biology, and even open housing design. And for those of you who want to fly high, get this, open source kite design. The open source ideal says that if our infrastructure is standard and makes contributions for the whole community, then we can all progress further.
The internet, it's big, it's vast, it's huge, and it's full of interesting things and also rubbish sometimes. So let us be your guides to the internet, like Refilwe, who's been looking for the best open source sites just for you. Wow.
Now that we've reached the end of Go Open, there's a good chance you're ready to take the plunge and start using open source software. But you might not be ready to close the window on your existing proprietary operating system. Here's the answer. surf to gnuwin.epfl.ch in your browser. GNUWin has a categorized listing of open source software, and you can download it all free of charge. You'll find everything from productivity tools to 3D games. If you've developed a liking for OpenOffice, you'll want to log on to www.openoffice.org.za. Here you'll find a host of South African support resources. The website is run by the OpenOffice.org Association of South Africa, and it's got product overviews, training, support, and local project resources. It's time to forget about the office and think about the big issues in life. Surf to Manifesto Heaven by clicking through to changethis.com. Every week, you'll find new manifestos by some of the world's most influential thinkers in business, politics, and social sciences. All of the manifestos are free, and you'll find topics ranging from creativity to global overcrowding to better website design. Calling themselves optimists, changethis.com challenges the way ideas are created and spread. Participate in the viral spread of ideas and download a manifesto today. To recap, check out gnuwin.epfl.ch for open source applications and games that will run on Windows. Get to openoffice.org.za for local support on this fantastic interlocking set of office productivity tools. And get to changethis.com and be inspired to change the world, or your lunchbox. Happy surfing!
Oh, well, it's our farewell episode, so we decided to give you a gift in a dazzling display of sycophantism. A laptop computer from Hewlett-Packard. It's a fantastic prize, and it's the top prize in our SMS competition this week. We're also giving away 2 LG DVD writers. We have a 17-inch flat screen monitor from LG, 2 1,000 Rand vouchers from Soviet Jeans. Of course, our HP PhotoSmart digital camera and printer bundle. Those prizes will be hand-delivered to our lucky winners by Dawnwing Couriers. The question is quite simple. What is OpenOffice? Is it A, an office without obstructed view? B, an office you can speak any language in? C, an open source office suite? Send your answer, just A, B or C will do, plus your name to 34357 and you'll be charged 2 Rand in SMS. And as we won't be here next week, you'll have to visit the website to find out who the winner is. Although we will try and phone you on Monday at about noon to try and be at your phone around that time. That's when the competition closes at noon. And you also that movie phone box, you know how it's going to end, so just be very careful of your phone. Anyway, the winners of last week's competition are...
The LG 17-inch flat screen monitor goes to Malcolm Taylor. Tyrone Weatherhill and Terence Vickland both win LG DVD writers. Dieval Latif and Charles Cooper each get 1,000 Rand Soviet clothing vouchers. And Cheryl Farmer walks away with the HP digital camera and printer bundle. Well done.
Well, that's it. That's the end of the series. We really hope you enjoyed Go Open. We're not sure if we'll be back. We may well be. If nothing else, you've learned more about computing than you ever knew before, and something about software, and open software, and closed software, and which is good and which is bad. We wonder. Thanks to our Go Open Source partners, the Shuttleworth Foundation, the CSIR, HP, and Canonical. Thank you all. Thank you, and good night. Bye-bye. Hambagasle.